Hey everybody, Professor Sorensen here. CS111. Wanted to jump on today. Hopefully it won't be that long, 5-10 minutes. And I want to show you a little something in Vscode where we can use the built-in debugger to examine our programs and see what variables are and see what's going on with our program. Really quickly, you'll see here I created a program called Debug Demo. Really simple. Right here in the main program, I create a string, I just put big Lars in it, and then I print it out. Then I create an integer array, and I hard code the elements right there. Then in the second line, I create an integer variable w, and I assign it the third item of the array, index 2, times the 8th item of the array. So it's 5 by 12. Okay, so I create that variable, and then I print out that variable. And then I call a function called loops. And that comes up here where I define my functions. Loops, I get a counter z, and I jump into a for loop that goes to 20. And here I call a function called add1. Is there an add1? Yes, right above I define add1. And all that does is, hello, adds 1 to the variable, okay? You'll see where I'm going when we start doing the debugging. And then I take my z, but I don't increment by 1. I increment by 3 just to do something a little bit different. And then the loops function runs, calling add1 as it does its work. And then after loops, the code ends. Now, sometimes you're doing things with loops. Sometimes you're doing things with functions, and you have errors in your code. Something goes wrong. You want to find out what's going on. So what a lot of people will tell you, and what a lot of people do to this day, I still do it from time to time, is put in print statements. Put a print statement in your loop. Put a print statement in your function. And when you see that output on the screen, it'll tell you where you are in the run, right? You can do that. Sometimes just down and dirty. That's a good solution, and that's a quick way to find out where you are. If you're in a function, like, you could print out all of the local variables in that function and tell me like what the state is, or that would be called a state dump or something like that. But Vscode, and if you look it up online, there are arguments whether Vscode is a true IDE or not. A lot of people call it an editor with a lot of really good code editing tools and not really a true IDE. That's a fight for another video. They have a built-in debugger. If you loaded the Java extensions when you loaded your VS Code, you likely have it. If you look up at the top of your public static void main and you see that run debug, it's already loaded. It came along with the Java. You can see up here too. You see run and debug, so you see that little bug by your play icon. Okay, that means you have the debugger and you're ready to go. That said, many of you, just testing things out, may have just said, okay, hey, I got a debugger, let's check it out. And then it goes, and it doesn't really do anything. I'm in the same spot, and I saw some funky blue code at the bottom, and some other things happened. But I'm back to normal, and you may just go on with your business. You ran the debugger. It's just you didn't tell it where to stop. If you play along up here, play around with your menus, you will find a spot that says toggle breakpoint or create a breakpoint, okay? What that means is that you want to tell your program where to stop when you debug. Now, there's a little area over here in between the Explorer window and the code window. You see where these red dots are? It's actually called the gutter. And if you go into the gutter and you say, okay, I'm going to put a stop there. And I'm going to put a stop here and here and here where my loops run. Now you set what are called breakpoints. So when you run the debugger, it's going to stop where you have those red dots. And then we can take a look at some of the tools and some of the things that you do with a debugger. So you can click this debug here. You can click to this window and say run and debug up here. You can start the debugger in a whole bunch of ways. I'm just going to click run and debug right there. Okay, and you can see what's happened is you've started at your first breakpoint. You'll see that little home plate or that little house around your first breakpoint. And you'll see a little menu comes up over here, okay? And there's a whole bunch of information over here in your debugging window. So we're going to talk about that real quick. First of all, when you're debugging, you want to find out the state of your program. And what is that really? Here we're going to concentrate on three things. We're going to concentrate on your variables, okay? You're going to concentrate on the call stack. Those of you who have my lecture, you know we go to my bad drawings, and I show you the call stack and how it goes up the line. We're actually going to see that now for real when we get to our functions. You can also set what are called watches. You can say, I want to watch to make sure this variable doesn't go over X, or I want to make sure that this variable stays the same. So you can set different watch points. I'll talk about that when I get there. Right now, I've run the program and I've stopped at system.out.println.name. Now I haven't printed anything to the screen. So what you need to understand is that where you stop, that breakpoint, you haven't run that line yet. So don't get confused. But one thing I have run is I defined my string variable name with the string literal big Lars. So up here under variables, you can see that name, big Lars. You can actually click down on it and see the ASCII values for all of the different items in that particular string. Okay? So from 0 to 6, you can see 0 to 6, I have the ASCII for those particular alphanumeric characters. So I can examine the variables in the program so far, not a lot here, string args, which came in with nothing, and big Lars. All right? And then I have system.out.println. So if I just want to run the code and keep going, I would come up here and begin to use these commands. Now, there's about 3 things up here, maybe 4, that I care about. Let's say 4. This arrow right here would say continue. Just keep running. So I would hit continue, and it would just go to the next breakpoint. Okay? I'm not going to do that, though, obviously. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop, and I'm going to rerun so I can get back to the point we were at, right there. Then there is something called step over. All right? Similar to run, but step over means go to the next breakpoint. Okay? In this case, they're right next to each other, so it's basically the same thing. When we get to functions and we get to the loops, we're going to worry about step into and step out of. Actually, while we're here at a print line, we're going to worry about step into. Because I could step over and I could just go to the next breakpoint. Or I could say step into. And what step into would do is show me the function I'm calling. And what you realize here is you're calling the function. You're calling the println function when you do a system.out.println. Forget std out for now. That would show us the code that we had for there. So when I say step into, it actually starts showing me what Java does when you say println, okay? If I'm not mistaken. You go even deeper. You go to the string class out of that. So you might be saying, whoa, this is confusing. It'll actually show you all the code that Java uses. So don't be confused by this stuff. Just come over here and say step out. So when you can step in and look at the functions you're calling, okay, or you can step out and come back to the original place right here. When I stepped out, I was done with print line, so I went to the next line, which defines my array. It hasn't run yet, okay? You don't see the array up here in variables. All you see running here is debug, which is the main program. So I'm pretty good. I have set a watch variable, W, but it hasn't run yet, so it says cannot evaluate. Don't worry about that. I'll show you that when we get there. So for now, I'm just going to step over this. So I say step over, and I go to the next line. But you notice, after this line has run, I now have my array defined up here in my variables. I click down, and I can see all of the items with their elements. So all of my defined variables are going to be over there in the variable window. Okay? Here, I define the variable W. I grab 2 of the elements of the array, and I multiply them together. So I'm going to say step over to go to the next watch point, which will be loops. When I do that, now W is defined because that's been run. Okay? Actually, I didn't want to step over. I should have gone down. I should have just said play, and it would have gone to the next breakpoint. This is going to the next line. So now I have a W, but because I have a W, my watch point worked because W is defined. The way you do this, and I'll just delete it, is you'll have a watch window right here. All you have to do is say plus, and like any Boolean expression, I want to make sure W is less than 50, which will be false, right? Yep. And it'll come back and say false. Because W is defined, it's 60, so that's false. So you can actually watch for certain things as you run through your code, which is pretty convenient, all right? The big thing about debugging, we're going to get there right now, is I set a breakpoint here for my loops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say step into the loop. So what's it going to do? It's going to come up here to the function. And it's going to show me the inside of the function. So then I'm just going to take the next step. You'll see there's a variable z. It's been set to 0. So it's now going to do all of the local variables as we go through. Now, if there's nothing to step into will act just like a step over. All right, so if I said step into here, it's just going to go to the next step. Sometimes if you want to make sure and trace down to all the different function calls, you're just going to hit step into over and over because of a situation like this. I'm going to hit step into here, and it's going to go down and show me the add one function because I'm calling add one here, okay? So it comes up to the add one, and it shows me that first line. It also shows me what the variable is over here. It's first time through the loop, so I called it with a 1. My x is a 1. All right. So now when I say step into, it comes back here to the same spot. So I could keep saying step into. Okay, we just realized something here. I'm going to step out really quick. I don't only have the add one there, I also have the print line. So if you keep stepping into, you're going to go to add one, then the print line. And print line is going to take you down a road into some nasty Java code. So you don't want to do that. When you come back from the add one, you could say step over and you'll go to the next spot, which is that. Okay? So now I'm going to say step over, and it's going to bring me up to the top of the loop again. Add one, if I want to go there and check it out again, I step into it. All right? But now I'm going to step back out, and now I'm going to step over. I accidentally hit it twice. But you can see over here, it's keeping track of all my variables. All right? Interestingly, over here, it cannot evaluate because we're in the loop, and W is not part of the scope. So remember what we learned about scope and what can see different things. I'm going to go to that add one variable one more time because I do want to show you something while I'm here in add one. Remember all of our stack drawings? Here's your call stack right here. There's main. From main, I called loops. From loops, I called add one. So you can see your call stack as you go up and down the line. All right? Think how helpful that might be if we're doing something with recursion. Enough said. All right? So you can use the debugging tools to dig down into the different functions that you're calling. And then when you're done, you can just step out. Okay? When I step out, I don't want to go through 20 iterations of the loop. So I can step out of the loop, and it'll come down here and bring me to the end of the program. Okay? I get to the end of the program, but my data is all over here still. I'm only running the debug demo function when I end. I still have my watch point looking at my variable. I'm back out in the global scope so I can see that. And here's the definition of everything that I did. Okay? Play around with all of this stuff because it's very useful. And what it does is step by step, as your code runs, it tells you what the state of your code is. So trying to figure out problems, trying to figure out errors, it's definitely more helpful. It's going to get you a lot more information than just your print statements along the way. They're helpful. I mean, when we cover debugging, I always mention them because it's always just to know where you are to stick a print statement somewhere. But something like this is next level stuff. Just remember to come here in the gutter and set your breakpoint, then run the debugger and play around with these 4 things. Step over, step into, step out of, and then the play right here, okay? You're sitting here at the end of a debug and you're over here and you're like, I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to where all my things are. Well, just remember, it's because you've got this pressed. If you come up here and go back to Explorer, then you're back where you were before. Now, you still have your breakpoints, okay? So you can easily go back. Do I need to kill? Yeah, I want to kill the debugger when I'm done with it. And then you still have your breakpoint. So if you want to go back to the debugger, you can do it. But if you just want to Java, what do I call it? Debug Demo. If you just want to start running your code again and seeing things and going back to your normal thing, you can do that, okay? But anytime you want to restart the debugger, you can just come here and hit debug, or you can click on that icon right here and hit run and debug. A lot of times what people will do is they'll just click on the debug for the main, and it will set you up right here, okay? Now, people will see the debug window and all of this and say, hey, wait a minute, where's my window? Where's my this? It's right over there, so don't worry about it, okay? It's always going to be where the bug and the play is. All right? All right, I want to keep this short, so I'm going to get out of Dodge. Hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully this gives you some ideas. Play around with some code, okay? Better yet, if you'd like, I'll take this debug demo and I'll put it up in files, okay, under Sorensen. So you can go grab this actual code and follow along if you desire and do stuff, you know, with this to play around with the debugger and figure out what the state of your code is at certain spots. It'll help you fix problems. It'll be really helpful along the way. That way, if you have a function that calls another function that calls another function, you don't get lost along the way, and it always shows you where you are. All right? All right, then I'm going to get out of here. You have a great what's left of the weekend. I don't know when you're going to be watching this. So you be good, and I will talk to you again soon.